All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to Separation Nation. As we promised, we're bringing you another episode with another guest today, and I think we mentioned him here a couple of podcasts ago. And let you know what was coming. We got Kevin Bullard, as the Bull, as I call him. We call him that because if he was standing up, for those of you that's watching the video, he's a big old son of a gun, and muscular and strong, and pro athlete. So many things he's been involved in over the years. He's actually in our industry today currently, and he'll get to that eventually. We'll kind of talk to him about some of that. But just a guy, we met Kevin probably, 7, 8 years ago now? Mm-hmm. And so just through some mutual acquaintances at one time and had met, and we were just sitting here reminiscing before we got started. I remember the first night we all went to dinner together. But, some people that you meet in life, in that type of situation that we was in that day, just meeting on some business, you don't really ever hear from them again, see them again, keep up with them, think about them even really all that much. But some people you just kind of connect with, whether it's you share the same ideals or personalities attract, or, I even like to believe sometimes for certain purposes, you're divinely connected with people. God's in the thing somehow. You don't know. You may just be acquaintances or just somebody to check on, somebody that you enjoy following their life, now with social media. But then years down the road, lo and behold, something comes up, and we don't know. There may be more of that with us in the future. But we know Kevin Bullard seems to like us, and, man, we've always liked you, and we've been around, shared some meals over the years and phone calls and checked up on each other. And so when we started this podcast, John and I, first person I told John, I said, we got to get Bull on here, Kevin Bullard on here. And one thing, we always have a good time. You got a great personality, sense of humor, and you from the South like us, so maybe that's part of the reason for the connection. But I've just always been connected, always kept up with each other's children and lives, and just a person. Kevin's a guy you could call, and I've always felt this way about you. You'd be right there if somebody really needed you, if we needed you. And I hope you feel the same about us. But we want to get right into it today and just kind of, Kevin has been successful at everything he's ever been in and been involved athletically in numerous different ventures over the years. And of course, very successful with his insurance career. But Kevin, maybe just start off and kind of tell the people, the listeners, a little bit about yourself. Of course, we call this Separation Nation. And what we highlight often is the separators, the things that separate achievers and successful people, folks that are unsuccessful. And what we found is in telling stories, you telling your story and various guests we have on, those separators, those things always come to light in the stories of people's lives and how they've gotten, where they've gotten and achieved what they've achieved. So just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your life, and we'll kind of go from there.
Awesome. Well, the first thing I want to do is thank both of you guys for having me here. It's humbling for you to sit there and listen to you compliment and respect the way I feel like I carry myself. And definitely 8 years ago when we met, I knew there was synergy there. Didn't know what we was going to do, but I've definitely kept up with you guys through social media. I look at your office here. You guys are doing business the right way. I've been able to see you guys grow just like I've grown. And I know there's something there special, because when you see someone that works hard, that has success, and you're truly rooting for them and not rooting against them, right. That's the kind of people I want to be around. And so, a little bit about me. I always say my story is real, man. My story is Cedartown, Georgia, little bitty town. Most know it as the town of Sam Hunt or Nick Chubb, Georgia football. But, in 1996, there was Kevin the Bull Bullard that graduated, and
Budweiser.
And
Cedartown, right?
Yeah, up in Rome.
Yeah.
And Cartersville area.
Cartersville, that's right.
But I was raised by a mom and dad that got up, packed their lunchbox, and went to work every single day. My dad was a mill worker, worked there 41 years. That's all I knew. He worked 6 days a week. He left the house at 6:30 in the morning. He got home at 3:15 every day on the hour. My mother was a bank teller, and then she worked for the Georgia State Patrol. So, growing up, people say blue collar. I didn't go without, but I definitely didn't have what everybody else had. And it created a desire and a hunger inside me. Really, it started at 7, 8 years old in my life, and I started racing BMX dirt bikes. And so I went to my first race and borrowed a bike, and I won. And somebody said, hey, you ought to race bicycles. There's a big national spotlight, not just right here in Cobb County, and right there in Powder Springs, Georgia. And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to get some more information. 7, 8 years old,
right.
First grade, second grade. And we started racing, man, and went to Jacksonville, Florida, was my first national. And I went first, and won my eights and my quarterfinals, my semifinals, won the main event, and got picked up, got a factory sponsor after the first day, first national I'd ever been to. So they provided me uniforms and bikes, and I had a 20-inch, and I had a cruiser, and we had spare parts. And what was unique and touching is that my mother was the only mother at these races.
Really?
And so she used to sit there and study, and you see all these dads, and they knew the sprockets, and they knew the rear sprocket, and they knew the front sprocket. And my mother would listen, and she would say, hey, John Tanner over here is running a 44-16, and he's beating you down the first straightaway, but you're catching him in the second straightaway. We probably need to run a 45-16. Mm-hmm. She studied that stuff as a woman. And, we had sew-ups, so the rim was glued to the rim. I mean, the tire was glued to the rim just from weight. These bikes weighed 12, 13 pounds total, finished. And Mama just studied it, man. And I remember being out, in Antioch, man, just long dirt roads and doing sprint work uphill, 7, 8 years old. And my mom just pushed me and pushed me. So my first year, I was national number 23. I said, man, I'd love to be in the top 20. And I got national number 11 the next year.
How about that?
I said, Mom, I'd really like to be in the top 10 in the country. I got national number 9 the next year. And I said, Mom, I think I can win national championship next year. I was 11 years old. I was racing a 20-inch, and I was racing a cruiser. And I won national championship in 1989 as 11-year-old, and won. I was national number 5 in the cruiser division, and I was in the entire country. My mother, we're being in being in a little small town and going to your local grocery store. Or right then, it was Rite Aid or Eckerd's.
Yeah.
And being in a magazine was kind of a big deal.
Heck yeah,
absolutely.
It was BMX Action, BMX Plus, Bicycles Today. And I remember just looking,
That's probably about the time, because you and I are the same age, it's probably about the time that movie Rad came out.
Yes.
Too. And that everybody was
stupid. There was guys in Rad that we raced with. Harry Larry, Travis Chipraz, Todd Lyons, and a lot of, just guys that I grew up watching, man. And I won the national championship, and I said, Mom, I want to do something else. And I'm 11 years old, started playing baseball, made my first all-star team when I was 12. Junior year in high school, I was a catcher and, batted in the heart of the lineup, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And my dad said, are you planning on going to college? And I was like, well, Georgia Tech and Tennessee and Georgia are sending me these letters. Yeah, I want to go to college. And he was like, well, I'm just going to tell you, you need to get a scholarship because we don't have the money to put you through college. And it was real clear. Mm-hmm. So I went to Rome, Georgia in 1995. Charles Culberson, you probably guys remember little Charlie on the Atlanta Braves now. He had just come back to Rome and opened up a sports academy. And I said, hey, who runs your cash register when you're doing your lessons? Because you're working from 3:30 to 9:30 every night, and nobody's running the register. He said, I don't got the money to pay anybody to run the register. I said, well, I don't have the money to pay for lessons, but I'll work from you from 3:30 to 9:30 every day if you exchange a lesson for me every night.
How about that?
So for about a year, I took lessons from him and got numerous scholarship offers, and ended up going to play for his brother, Calvin Culberson, at Armstrong State. And, you know, I was in a small town. Everybody was like, you know, you're a good high school catcher, but you'll never make it in college. And then when I got to college and I didn't quit and come home like everybody thought I would, you know, I started being a force and breaking records and setting records, offensive records at Armstrong State. And then it was like, well, he'll never play in the pros. And, you know, then I signed with Arizona Diamondbacks, and, you know, I'm out there tearing it up, and got a career-ending injury in my left hand, and got a permanent disability settlement with the Diamondbacks and rehabbed my hand. And I said, man, I can still go. You know, I got 3 rods and a couple pins, and went back to spring training next year, and had a little 4-month-old. It was a little different.
Oh, yeah.
Making $1,600 a month, living in a Studio 8 hotel room. So I made a decision at the end of that spring training to come home and be a dad. So came home, riding around at the golf course. I always wanted to join the country club. Never had the money. Never was a member of the country club growing up.
Right.
Matter of fact, my dad says, sissies play golf. You don't want to play golf? And so I got that settlement, you know, and I said, I want to join the country club, man. I joined Cherokee Country Club and was a member out there, started hitting a golf ball. And, you know, it kind of took off from there. You know, a lot of people in my workforce today doesn't even know that I hit a golf ball, or doesn't even know I played baseball. And it's just one of those things that each year goes by, it just kind of falls by the wayside, you know. And, but it kind of created a hunger inside me, and realized that if you didn't work hard, you wasn't going to be fast, or you wasn't going to throw hard, or you wasn't going to, you know, play. You were going to get beat out by the next guy. Then when I got into golf, you know, I went literally around the world doing corporate outings for about 15 years for companies like TD Ameritrade, Google, Home Depot, Maui Gym, Callaway Gardens, Callaway Golf. And I finished my last 4 years on the Callaway Kings of Distance long drive team, where they had handpicked 12 athletes from all over the world to be ambassadors of the Callaway brand. Thought it was cool being on the same website as Phil Mickelson. You know, my appearance fee was a little different, a couple zeros less. But, you know, my whole life, I've always said you got to be willing to do what the others are not willing to do.
Right.
You got to differentiate yourself somehow. And I just took kind of a sports background and kind of rolled it in to my profession. And, you know, I think that's where we got a common bond.
Right.
As you guys kind of look at your day-to-day business the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know, how you do anything is how you do everything. And that's why it's worked for you, from BMX racing to baseball to golf, and now the financial services industry. You know, we met because of insurance, you know, which I was intrigued by your story when we met, because, I mean, we talk about insurance every day. I've been 20 years in this business. I get sick of talking about insurance.
Oh, yeah.
You know? But I love it. You know, it's how I've made my living. It's created a wonderful lifestyle for me and my family. But I had you down to Kinderlee for the long drive.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And Bill Robertson and those guys was there, and we hosted you out there. It's phenomenal, you know. Mm-hmm. I'd never even seen you hit a golf ball, but just from your story, I said, well, heck, we'll get him down here and let him put on a show.
See if he's real.
See if it's for real. And I remember
Thomas.
Thomas is actually he's a good golfer. He's one of the top golfers out there. And but yeah, you had him lay down and hit the golf ball for him. And then I thought you was gonna kill Tina Anderson out there, because you hit the golf ball straight to her and it went straight to her. I don't know how you do that stuff, man. It's just amazing. But but how many times do you have to hit the same golf ball the same way to get each of those little tricks down? I mean, it's just hours and hours and hours and hours of prep for a 15-minute show. And that's how business is, you know. You might close a deal in, you know, an hour, but you got 200, 300, 400 hours, 1,000 hours in preparation. Your whole life was preparation for that deal you closed, and your whole life's been preparation for the position you're in now.
You know, that's a key thing you just said. So I went through a leadership class at Aflac probably about 8 months ago. The lady's name was Rebecca Esposito. And she pulled me to the side after the class and she said, you know, you got a great voice. I love it. She said, but you got to understand that when you're talking with someone, just be yourself.
Right.
Don't be anything different. Don't try to sound more educated, like you've been in the industry longer than you've been in the industry. Just be yourself. And it was amazing. She asked me a question. And she said, you shared bicycles and you shared golf and you shared baseball. She said, let me ask you something. On a random week when you was golfing, how many balls would you hit? Would you hit 20? Would you hit 100? Would you hit 300? I said, yeah. I said, you know, different weeks, and especially at my prime, I was probably hitting 1,000 balls a week. And she said, how successful do you want to be in the insurance industry? And I said, well, I want to be successful. I want to make a lot of money. You know, I want to create a legacy for my boys. If they want to come in this industry, I want to show them the example.
Right.
And she said, how much time do you spend on yourself every single week? She said, do you get in front of the mirror and go through 30 or 40 or 50, you know, skits or 3-minute, you know, statement, period, pause. And, you know, I walked out there going, wow, I just got humbled.
Yeah.
Because as good as we think we are, we still don't do enough preparation like we used to.
Yeah. No,
and so I tell everybody, you know, if you said, hey, John, Kevin, I'm struggling, I would say, how much time are you spending on John?
That's right.
And I answer that question to myself every day.
Well, it's, you know, it's the thing about, you know, we're all in this business to make a difference, but the end result, I mean, it takes money to make the world go round. We're trying to make a living, you know, and do even better than that. But your wealth don't go up. Your wealth don't increase until you increase. And, you know, it's that 1,000 balls a week. That principle's in everything. You know, they say it takes 10,000 hours at something to get great at it. It takes another 10,000 to be legendary. You know, how many balls did Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan shoot? I mean, how many free throws Michael Jordan shot? That principle worked for you in BMX, it worked for you in baseball, it worked for you in golf, and that's what we're all trying to do in business. You know, this is our football field, man. This is our baseball diamond now. Right. This is what we've got. This is how we keep score now. You know, how successful we are in business, and our business grows as we grow. You know, so taking those, it's definitely a separator. You know, we talk about separation nation. I mean, you've shared one of the biggest separators out there. Elbow grease. Bottom line, that's what it is. Grit and elbow grease.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I always look at it and say that, you know, I didn't, you know, it wasn't like my dad, you know, had been a insurance guru and a legend, brought me into the business, turned his business over to me, or I wasn't an attorney that, you know, did this. And I've had real estate people and bankers, you know, in my town there in Rome just go, man, I didn't realize you know, do what you do and you do it well. Which I kind of take that the older I get, at least I'm humble.
Right.
And they don't know that. And, you know, it's just, I can honestly say whatever I got, I've earned it. And my boys know that. And I look at them at age 19 and 15 today, and I know they're genuine, they're appreciative, they're respectful, they're going to work hard, you know, and I see it.
Right.
And I see it at different levels in their life. And, you know, I think really talking about sports and talking about bikes and baseball and golf is great.
Sure.
But the biggest thing I've ever done, and I want you to think about this, guy, because both of you guys got great wives that participate and help, but I raised both of my boys by myself. And, you know, I had my oldest son that just graduated from high school, National Honor Society, first one in our family. I think the first one at his school, that both played football and baseball and lettered in both sports and was in National Honor Society. I think he was the only person that played both of those sports and lettered and was in National Honor Society. So to me, that's lets me know that I'm doing something right.
Absolutely.
And that's the most rewarding accomplishment or pat on the back that I could ever get.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine what all you've done with your career and being a single father and raising those kids, man. Yeah, I watch your boys on, in fact, it's big old boys.
Yeah. A lot of groceries.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, and I go back and look at you guys, man. I remember coming down, I stayed at your house.
Yeah.
Met your wife. We ate breakfast the next morning, your kids. And, I tell people all the time, man, you got to grow financially, but you got to grow emotionally and professionally as well. And those two have to balance as you start growing. And I think last time you were talking on Separation Nation, you were talking about that path.
Yeah.
And I think as we go down that path, it's so important to balance those. And they get out. They've gotten out in your life. They've gotten out in my life, your life, Justin. But, it's balancing.
That's right.
And keep those balanced as you grow. And
you mentioned earlier, taking care of yourself. And we just actually, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already heard the episode because we just earlier today was shooting some content. And we talked about the importance of that, especially in business, being in leadership, whether it's CEO or manager of a sales team or whatever it is, the importance to take care of yourself first. And I know you've probably seen the same thing, but a pile of business people that'll have great success on the business front, but then they neglect the spiritual or the emotional side or the relational side with their family,
That's right.
It kind of goes back to even, that scripture, what good does it do a man to basically conquer the world, it says, and lose his family.
That's right.
Or you see some people that can't ever seem to get successful in life. It's always got to be at every little old thing, when it comes to their children, or maybe it's just, whipped, as we like to say in South Georgia. I mean, they going to just sit at the house and be right under mama every time she needs something, and then they suffer on the professional side.
Right.
It takes work and effort, plan to win, prepare to win, and only then can you expect to win. And winning's about more than sports. It's about life, Mm-hmm. But one thing I'm more into football now than I've ever been in my whole life. I've never been a real big sports person. I was during the golden years leading up to the World Series and all them, probably a decade, I didn't miss a Braves game. I played baseball, was into it, but got more into music stuff around the 8th, 9th grade. And so just kind of shifted there. Loved it. But for me personally, at that time when I was younger, when it came to being at practice every day,
that's right,
and consuming your whole life, I was just wired a little different. But now the older I've gotten, business, I've gained a new appreciation for sports, especially the sport of football, and love every aspect of it. I'm a huge Georgia fan, go Dogs. And, but there's so much similarities between sports, the coaches in the lives of the students, the discipline and the life principles that I really maybe had discarded or didn't realize before, but now that I'm a part of it and I watch all these great coaches, you know what I'm saying? And you see the clips and you see the footage and you see what goes into all that. And you see the importance really, of these students, the lives that's changed and the leadership development that happened at such an early age. And then you see what these students go on to become. I'll listen to a podcast with Inky Johnson.
That's right.
I'm sure y'all.
Arm. Tennessee.
Arm with Tennessee. I listened to a podcast with him the other day. Of course, obviously his career got into there, and he's one of the most prolific and highest paid speakers now anywhere in the whole speaker circuit. Speaks all over the world and is paid fantastically for it. Listen to him, you understand why. But when you listen to him talk about the impact and the difference, and that makes me think about you and your stories coming up. It was made on him and what he learned through sports and through those coaches and people touching his life that otherwise he wouldn't have learned. And then to understand the strength that put into him to be who he was and for it all to end like that, and to hear the mental strength and perspective and how he was able to understand at such an early age that things happen for me. They don't happen to me. And he's going to turn around, and that's one thing I gained off of that podcast. Perspective is power, and perspective drives performance. How you view what you do is how you will then do what you do. And that's in sports, that's in business, that's in life. And I think one thing listening to you talk, is you're one of them people that has been able through anything life's thrown at you, sports career starting. You never stopped and went and sat in the corner and said, damn it, things work out for everybody else. Screw this, didn't work out for me. I got an injured wrist now, or whatever the situation. You've hit numerous, brick walls, as I'm sure we all have.
Right.
But the thing is what you did, your perspective on that issue, how you took it, funneled and said, this is happening for me. How I view what I do is how I'm going to do what I do. And you went and picked up the next thing that you could do and pick up and accomplish with and achieve with and continue to inspire people with. And that's the inspiring thing about your story, And so you never let one thing sit there. And listen, let's face it, pretty much 97% of the country, that's how when things happen to them, they say, oh, this has happened to me. Poor pitiful me. They develop a victim mentality, and they cower back and just go back into mediocrity. And they live their days getting up, going working a 9 to 5, coming home, eating supper, sitting in front of TV, watching Netflix, rinse, repeat, and the next day, same thing over and over again. And what I equate to living like a zombie. They spend their whole life. Sure, they may love, they may be loved, they may have some victories, but they spend their whole life never doing anything that is just monumentous, and whatever field you're in, I think we all have that desire in us, we want to win. We want to know what it's like to accomplish something. And listening to your story, winning that first BMX, at that early of an age, experiencing that type of victory and that type of achievement, it was like a shark with blood for you, and you just took that and funneled it and you're continuing to take whatever energy comes your way and divert it into something positive that's going to continue to increase and inspire others. And that's inspiring.
When I think about it, I loved everything you said. And the only thing I would add to it is, when you look at sports, you face adversity like every play, every inning, every pitch, every shot, every turnover. And I think, a lot of times when I catch myself talking to my boys is, how are you going to handle adversity? You hear, I know you got to plug in for Georgia football, but I say roll tide. As Nick Saban says, how do you handle adversity? And that's what he looks for, is he looks and sees how his athletes are going to handle adversity when it's on the line, the last 2-3 minutes of the game. And I tell my boys all the time, and I think sometimes as a father figure, we fail of telling our boys that, listen, life's going to hit you harder than anybody ever has. And it's going to knock you down, and it's not going to help you up. And I always go back to when we were kids. What do we watch? Eye of the Tiger, baby.
Oh, yeah, Rocky.
And 1, 2, 3, 4. You still know every one of those movies today.
I just watched Creed, the last one.
And you used to stand in front of the TV and
oh yeah,
ooh, get him.
I still do.
I'm telling you. And but it's amazing because that's our childhood, and that's the way it was. Is how do we handle adversity? How do we overcome? How do we win and find a way? And it's amazing we find ourselves here today talking about overcoming adversity. How do we impact others? And the last thing is as I've matured, and we all, I still got a ways to go, but as you mature, what I feel like has changed in my life over the last 4 or 5 years is I do so much for others. And I don't say that today for you guys to give me a certificate or anything, but what I'm saying is my life changed when I stopped worrying about myself and started saying, how can I help John out? Or how can I help Justin out? And when I look back, it's definitely a part of my last 4 or 5 years of saying, how do I help somebody? And I've had people say, well, why'd you give John $5,000? Well, John's a good person, and John will pay it back. And the problem is the good thing about that is the way And I'm not a Bible beater, but I believe in God, and God has been good to me. And I say all the time, he brings me that back times 10. And I don't know how, but it keeps coming back in success. And so, the brokers I work with today, I don't think I'm the smartest carrier rep that sits down with them. I don't think I've been in the industry longer than anybody. I might not have the best product. I might not have, the best underwriting offer. I might not have the biggest marketing allowance. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they know I'm a good person. They know I stand for my word. My handshake's just as good. I feel like we live in a world of contracts and black and white. And I tell people all the time, you got my word. And I was literally on the way down here, and I told a guy, I was like, hey, are you getting in with that broker in Savannah, Georgia? Listen, if I help you get in, he said, Kevin, I would love to split with you, because 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Absolutely. And I know you guys, have heard that. And that's sometimes in a commission industry, it's hard for somebody to understand that. But when you really grasp that concept, man, it's amazing, because go back to all of our sports days. You didn't play sports by yourself. No. And today there's besides swimming and maybe golf, but it's still a team score, but you're never doing anything by yourself. And so what I say is, why are you trying to do it by yourself in the insurance industry? Yeah. Right? Yeah, tap into your resources,
Well, that's the thing. The Lone Ranger will become the Lone Stranger eventually.
I love it.
And, that's something me and Justin's always, we've done this thing together for so long and tried to build teams and build people. And that's one of the biggest keys to our success. But, there's one thing about you, and it's made you so successful in sales, is people buy people. They don't buy products. Right. We did business with Transamerica when you worked with Transamerica, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, when we had our meeting with you and the other guy from Transamerica that had been there for years, you had just started.
Barry Bell.
Yeah, Barry Bell, great guy.
Great guy.
But you had just started. But you had to remind me of his name. I ain't never going to forget the Bull, Kevin Bullard. Because your personality. And not just personality, but you can tell the essence of a person when you first meet them in the first 5 minutes. Number one, I know this guy right here you can trust. This guy's genuine. This guy, he's not under any false pretense. What you see is what you get. And that's how we've always lived our life. That's how we do business, same way we live. And so, you're with a whole different company now in a field that we don't even do business in anymore, but we still here around this table talking because we buy people. And not just buy people, but we know that those connections and that network of people, we said it before, your network will determine your net worth. Because that's what opens doors, and is the relationships you build throughout. So we're thankful for this relationship, and your story, man, it's amazing. And so we thank you for coming and being on here with us today.
I told you this before, but you need to write a book. I can put your content. You need to write a book, leverage the book, because you got too much of a charismatic personality. You need to write a book, leverage the book, build your website, thebull.com or kevinbullard.com. I'm telling you, you got a lot to give to a lot of organizations. I believe you'd be a lot more booked up on your time, that you're not grinding so hard in the insurance business than you think, because you got a lot to give. It's 2 or 3 years ago, I think you called me, and I told you needed to look at doing something like that.
It's crazy you said that. So we were at Kirby Smart's golf tournament, Reynolds, last year. Guy walked up at the bar. I was sitting with my fiance, and he said, "Are you the long drive guy?" And I said, "Yeah, I used to be." He said, "Man, did you?
You got
Siri's done picked up on the long drive."
Tell Siri ain't nobody called her name.
That's funny.
Listen, you can talk to us, Siri, but when you think back, and he said, "Did you drive? Number 14, it's like 400 yards. That ball come rolling up on the green. Was that really your drive?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, the wind was downhill. The wind, I play it down, but 15 years ago I played it up, and we got at the bar afterwards, and he was, just going on about it, and I told him my story. And he was the author of Bruce Arians' book. And he had written another book, and so we've had conversations, and I respect the guy. I mean, you know, big name guy, but you know, my buddies in Cedartown, they say, Bullard, you've been almost famous 3 times. You know, you know, I was almost a world champion in bicycle racing, 1987. I was a spring training the year the Diamondbacks won the World Series. You know, and then won 9 national championships in golf, and you know, made the World Finals a couple times. You know, got a couple of drinks of coffee, come close, 2006 and 7. So I've been very close several times, and so
that's the title of your book, Almost Famous.
3 times.
And then 3 times.
I'm wondering if he'd want a royalty.
I think it's gonna probably.
We'll come up with a tagline off of that.
Yeah,
and you'll be ready to go. We'll get you forward on there, and you'll be in business. But no, man, we appreciate having you on. Let me ask you, what is the farthest you ever drove the golf ball?
In competition. It was my claim to fame on the Golf Channel. They did a story on it. I hit one 449 yards. I needed 412 yards, and they called it back approximate. And so the guy was, you know, literally, if you look down this table, he was standing at 412, and at the end of the table was 449, and it looked like the ball was sitting on the line. And so that was my first ball. And, you know, and in that sport, you get 6 balls, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Well, I hit my first ball 450. So what do I try to do the next 5? I try to hit them 480. Yeah. And I missed the grid. And then we walk off, and they walk back to confirm it, and the ball was just barely sitting an inch off the line. So you can imagine a white ball, a white football grid. It looks like it's kind of sitting on the line. So the Golf Channel did a awesome story, and you know, they said you hit a golf ball a quarter of a mile, and it comes down to inches. Wow. And so I told somebody the other day, you know, walking back to the practice grid, you know, sometimes it seems like, you know, 20 yards, and sometimes it seems like 20 miles. And that day it seemed like 20 miles. And so I've been there.
I hear you.
I've been close, and I'm okay. The fact that I never won one, but I might be a world champion father, and I'm okay with that. But I'm at Aflac now, and I'm having a great start to a new career. Same industry, new company. I'm surrounded by a great team. I'm surrounded by great leaders that I look up to, aspire to be like. And that's what God's plan is going right now.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. If people that's listening to you now, if they say they got a corporate event or something, they might want you to come speak, share your story. What is it? Facebook? Is that the best way to follow? Best place to follow you?
Best way.
Just look Kevin Bullard.
Yes.
And located in Rome, Georgia. There.
Rome, Georgia.
And so anyway, we encourage you to go follow Kevin if you're not already. And listen, if this has brought any value to it all today, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please like, share it on social media. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube at Agents Resource Group, also on the preferred podcast platform of your choice, because you can find us anywhere podcasts are played. Okay, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next time here on Separation Nation.